YouTube, what's up? This is Bartemis and I wanted to make a short video just to explain a couple of things about Bartemis and in particular, why does Bartemis suck at Fortnite so much? To understand why this phenomenon exists today, we need to talk about a couple of concepts. This is a concept of habits and habit forming and things that you learn as you're growing up. We know that habits are formed a lot when you're younger, and we know that children develop habits and learn new concepts much faster than adults do. Now, as you can tell by my voice, I'm obviously not a child, so my childhood is when I formed a lot of habits that ultimately led to me being a crap Fortnite player today. The other thing is, they say that it takes 10,000 hours to master something, and children these days, they do spend an awful lot of time playing on gaming devices, iPads, PlayStations, that sort of thing, and in reality, they probably do actually, when you add it up and total it up, they probably do spend close to 10,000 hours, well before they turn 10 years old, playing on those kinds of devices, so it becomes inherently second nature to them to operate such controls. So this is an iPad, and it came out in 2010. I was in my 30s when this came out, so for anybody born after 2010, this thing has been around longer than you have. So you can't imagine a world without an iPad in it. I had, at least 30 years on the planet before the iPad showed up. So I certainly no trace of an iPad in my childhood, and so I didn't have any need to adjust to using a touchscreen to play games on, and certainly not build up 10,000 hours worth of experience doing so. Children today, they can also spend a lot of time playing these. Of course, this is an Xbox and a PlayStation, and the controllers haven't really changed all that much. Certainly with the PlayStation, they haven't changed all that much since the device first came out. The first PlayStation came out very late in 1994. The first Xbox came out in 2001. We, as a family, we weren't really console players. I certainly wasn't a console player, so I didn't first play the PlayStation until about 1999, by which stage I was an adult. And so the chance of using that kids learning quickly thing that kids get when they pick up new devices, that was long gone for me. It was lost. The moment was well and truly past for me to become a PlayStation console gaming pro. My first gaming console, if you want to call it that, was one of these. This is a Nintendo Game & Watch, and it was a device that did one game, and it did only one game, and that is it. That's all it did. And my brother and I had many of these together. But ultimately, it's one game, and there's only so many different images that it can animate on the screen. There's a limited number of buttons, there's a limited number of functions, they're very slow. You don't really need to be a quick thinker to play a Nintendo Game & Watch. But my first serious, hardcore gaming device, if you want to call it that, was one of these. This is a Commodore 64. We had one of these at home from the time I was about 8 years old, and they were great. They were great gaming machines. Don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed Commodore 64, but compared to the games of today, their games weren't exactly impressive. We'll just look at some of these games. This is some brief snippets of the graphics and the gameplay of a Commodore 64 game. You soon get the idea that it's not really a game with anywhere near the level of depth and complexity and the need to think strategically as a game like Fortnite Battle Royale, for example. The games weren't impressive, nor were they particularly fast. But to fully grasp why I find Fortnite Battle Royale so hard, you have to look at the controller. You probably recognise this device. It's a joystick. Different from PC joysticks. Basically, they're a stick, and if you move it to the left, it goes left. You move it to the right, it goes right. Push it forward, it goes up. Pull it towards you, it goes down. And that's it. There was no level of granularity along that line. It either you were going up or you weren't, or you were going left or you weren't. There was also a fire button, one fire button. There might have been multiple buttons, perhaps one on the left, one on the right, depending on whether you were left or right-handed. There might have been one on the stick itself, like a trigger. But there was one fire button. So it was player 1, press fire to start. Player 2, press fire to start. There was only one fire button on the joystick. So you can imagine me as a young adult going to the PlayStation for the first time with all of its triangle, square, cross, circle buttons, and of course nowadays the PlayStation controller has got more. It's got R1, R2, the wiggle stick on the left, wiggle stick on the right, it's got the touchpad, it's got all of these extra functions. The Xbox has got the movement on its controller. There's so many different ways that you can control the game today, and I missed picking up a lot of that stuff because I wasn't a child when I started using the device. So yeah, sure, I've played a lot of PlayStation over the years. I've gotten better with the controller over the years, but I'm just never going to be able to pick one up and inherently be good at the game because of my past. After we upgraded from the Commodore 64, we got a PC, and I then pursued flight simulation and motor racing simulation. The thing with simulations is that they are inherently a lot slower. They're nowhere near as fast-paced as a tense battle in Fortnite. And also with flight simulation, eventually I used the joystick. With motor racing sims, eventually I used the steering wheel and pedals. And it mimics a real car. If you can drive a real car, you can drive a motor racing sim, and I could drive by that stage. So adapting to using a steering wheel just kind of felt like, remind yourself, pretend you're driving a real car, and away you go. So all those of you, this is the message I wanted to say today, is all those of you who have iPads or PlayStations and have had them in your lives for basically most of your life that you remember, most of you have a massive head start over me. A massive head start. I had very basic gaming experience until I was 8. Then very limited experience until well into my teens, and then I switched to using racing and flight sims. So when it comes to Fortnite, if I play on the iPad, I can't play on it because it's got no sensation and no feedback. There's no way for me to know if I've pushed the right part of the screen or not, because there is no feel and no texture because it's a flat screen. It's just you push that part of the screen, it jumps. You push slightly above it, it doesn't jump. And there's no way for me to tell whether I've pushed the right part of the screen or not without actually taking my eye off the bit in the screen that's important and looking at the side. The PlayStation, I can't play Fortnite on it because I still, despite a huge amount of effort, haven't memorised the many buttons, let alone what they do on Fortnite. So my only option is PC. But there, I'm used to flight and racing simulation, which is much less fast-paced than Fortnite is. You don't need to make split-second decisions. You don't need to hit the perfect key every time. And if you stuff it up, you're not going to immediately die. You've got to do a lot of really dumb things to crash a plane on Flight Simulator, and it takes a lot of time to get it so bad that you're slamming into the ground. But on Fortnite, you go to build and you push the wrong button. Instead of deploying a jump pad, you deploy a cozy campfire. You're history. You're back in the lobby without any hesitation. So hopefully that gives you all a little bit of perspective on why it's such a monumental thing when I do such a simple thing as get 2 kills in a match, because really it's a really hard learning curve for me getting good at Fortnite. I love the game and I definitely want to get better, but boy, it's a struggle. Hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope it's given you some insight into why Bartemis is as bad as he is at Fortnite. And please subscribe, please like this video, and hopefully you'll see more content from me soon.